Our next speaker, he's a gentleman that works with the United Nations and all over the country with government and local officials and Native Americans, and he's here to talk about regenerative hemp business that's farm to table.
Thanks.
Oh, did I not say that? I'm sorry, I was trying to make this long.
Thanks for coming. My name's Doug Fine. I am a solar-powered goat herder and hemp farmer based in southern New Mexico, but we'll talk about hemp all over, including in Hawaii. But here's my first couple of questions before we do anything, okay? First couple questions. How many people have eaten something from hemp today? Show of hands. Awesome. Mostly, I'm guessing hemp hearts, something like that. Any hemp seed oil? Hemp seed oil? Nice. And how many people have are wearing something made of hemp fiber today? Which is, by the way, the bast fiber. You guys are, Lori, what is hemp on you? Awesome. So for me, it's pants. This is the usual TMI alert, people. Pants, vest, and underwear. Organic, today grown in China. All right, so I wrote a book called Hempbound before I really became a hemp farmer, and it's very relevant. This is a moment of great meaning to me right now. The publisher sent me options for the cover photo when this book was coming out in 2014, and this was an obvious, beautiful one. I had no idea that we would be sitting in it one day, this cover photo, and talking about hemp. I did not know that it was a Maui image. It just was way better than the other options they gave me, and contractually, I'm not in charge of the cover. So they have to meaningfully consult. So they meaningfully consulted. I said this one, and they took it. And then I found out Richard Fields was the artist, and tried to track him down. He's a Maui artist, shown in several paella galleries. No one can find him. He's missing. I'm trying to thank him, talk to him about what his vision was. This was still Kane territory when he made this piece of art, and he was fairly well known. And his dream is becoming true. We're standing here today discussing hemp, and already hemp is in the ground in Maui and all that. And so first, thanks to the Hawaii hemp farmers, many of whom were in the hemp and cannabis farmers. Could you guys stand up if you were growing hemp in Hawaii? Thank you. These guys deserve a round of applause. So Greg, is this Greg?
Yeah, take a bow. He's already saying.
It's not easy to grow hemp in Hawaii right now. We'll get to that, and there's a policy talk after that. We'll just touch on it a little bit here. Oh, Steve, you got to stand up if you're growing hemp in Hawaii. Steve Sakala, also growing hemp in Hawaii. All right, so we were offering thanks for making the Hempbound cover come true. This was a dream. This is a Maui cover. Now it's true.
All right.
Now for a few more thanks. Obviously, the Farmers Union. I'm a proud member, and I can honestly urge everybody to be a Farmers Union member. I learned so much from the incidental conversations with all the different farmers and people. It's the probably most educational thing I do as a farmer every year, and I am a hemp farmer. I want to thank, with bottom of my heart, my good friends and colleagues at WAFBA, which is sort of the overarching entity of the Colorado Hemp Company, Tree Free Hemp, my hemp printed business cards, the awesome NOCO Hemp Expo. You need to go, for sponsoring this town, and they're here. So Mars, Lizzie, and Lori, would you please stand up and let everybody appreciate you? Thanks for making it possible. I can't believe this is work. Okay, so, but it is work. Growing Hawaii is a lot of work. The overarching theme, I'll try to gear us a little bit toward Hawaii-type topics today, because I was an affiliated researcher with the University of Hawaii's initial seed project. They gave out 3 contracts, and I don't know all the nuances. There wasn't a lot of good communication, and even though I love both these guys were involved in it some way as one of the contractees, and the University of Hawaii project that I was part of was one of the contractees, and there was a third one did it ever happen, like a Maui, so it happened a little bit. So we produced 3 crops out of the University of Hawaii, so I've got a little perspective on cultivating hemp. But the overarching theme today is somebody else is going to have McCBD in the box store, and that is not the way for humanity to survive into the near future in general. So what your advantages are as entrepreneurs is to do something that's value added. There's already examples in this room, and I would love to hear everybody's story, but there's just something I want to point out about what this is. This is USDA certified organic product that I grow and produce farm to table in small batches in Vermont, and I mention it because it clearly says Vermont. I order this from a maple syrup company. Okay, I'm really not trying to hype my product here. You'll see. I'm going to bring it around to macadamia nuts and hula dancers. And it says Vermont, right? And then I could also brag compostable labels with non-toxic stickum. Look it up. There's ways to do everything righteously for the survival of humanity at this point. Every step. The next step is, when we're all fabulously wealthy at all this, make sure we convert air traffic to solar-powered, electric charged and hemp batteries. Then we're really in business. But the point of this is, we have to be in charge as farmers. So what you guys can do from Hawaii, I've already given away the punchline, is, and I think Steve is already doing a line like this, and Lely's products bespeak Hawaii, which is brag about the aloha factor and make that be what you do that's different. I said it earlier today, but I'll say it again. My big influence as an entrepreneur is Dolly Parton, who once said, to succeed, honey, you gotta be first, better, or different. And for the most part, although Hawaii markets are different than markets everywhere, you're not first, right? So there may be a while, or if you're great, where you can just supply wholesale cannabinoids and rely on a high price on that. I'm praying for it, for Greg's harvest this year, for high prices, and he's all that kind of, people that are doing it now, smart move. But if we're trying to save humanity, the long-term play involves cultivating for more than just Sensimilla hemp. Is there anybody who needs that explained? Is there anybody who doesn't know what I mean by Sensimilla hemp? Show of hands. Okay, so Sensimilla hemp means, Sensimilla is Spanish Sinsemilla without seed. And so most people today cultivate hemp. 80% of the hemp market is just growing female flowers and just trying to maximize the wholesale value of the CBD out of those flowers. So Sensimilla means female-only seeds that are never fertilized. So plants that are never fertilized. So the whole farm is just females. I have some personal theories on hormonal balance, but I will say this. I survey everybody who was a cannabis aficionado before Sensimilla came on in the ganja world, in the psychoactive cannabis world. And I'm really at 100% on this, of surveying, including, didn't we talk about it today? Remind me of your name. John and I were talking earlier, and he confirmed. So he confirmed that there was a balance. Yeah, we weren't getting the dispensary 25% THC and all that wonderful stuff, and now people are going for 25% CBD. There was something. Maybe the plants were happier because they were dating. They were males and females. I don't know. But there was a hormonal balance that many people are feeling. So at the very least, you have a market potential in growing the way that hemp has been grown for the last 8,000 years, rather than for the last 10 years in hemp, which is no males at all allowed to the party. And 8,000 years it's a dioecious crop with males and females. I choose dioecious, and it's just to be different than Dolly Parton's. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm bragging that this whole product, it's called Hemp and Hemp, everything came from the field. At least every component of the plant came from hemp we grew. So organic hemp seed oil, USDA certified, fun process in Vermont, infused with the flowers from the same plant. So CBD aficionados today would say, what? People that want to make it into pharmaceuticals and isolate it, right? And there's purposes for this in extreme medical situations where someone to reduce a certain kind of tumor needs 80 gazillion milligrams of CBD, right? But for something that's like everyday use, we may find that what's known as the entourage effect, a balance of cannabinoids and terpenes in your profiles, are what makes the better product. So that's my talking story about, my product. So you could do it in a billion different ways. So the key is, don't be enslaved to wholesalers. The FDA is soon to come out with food regulations that's based on this piece of supermarket written BS called FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act. What we really need is a Food Safety Antiquization Act, or Antiquarian Act. And what that is, just to sum it up in a sentence, when Western food processing came to Alaska, botulism cases skyrocketed compared to the previous Yupik and Inupiaq ways of preserving fish and fermenting fish through the winter. So the feds, wanting supermarket lawyers who are afraid of getting sued about anything different or any microbes, are trying to make us kill all food. In the US, it's called FSMA. Worldwide, it's called the Global Food Safety Initiative. And it's not acceptable for those of us that believe living foods are more bioavailable. So we haven't even started to address. The FDA is not hearing. They're hearing from Kentucky lawyers. They're not hearing from independent small farmers for the most part. and we're probably not going to let me be more positive. In the event that we are not totally satisfied with the initial FDA food regulations, if they're all about FSMA and global food safety, we have to get together as a craft market that says we have different rules that are much closer to farmers market type rules. But those rules, every state has them, they usually have income limitations. We're saying we're going to professionalize the independent farmer entrepreneur and grant special rules. In a book that I just finished, I'm proposing 11 tons of product by dry weight per year as the craft market to start, but we've got to just start a discussion somewhere. We get basically farmers market rules for our products, and we don't have to nuke our food in order for it to be allowed to be sold at stores. So this is not hypothetical. Roger Gushis is a huge hemp seed oil processor in Minnesota, a good friend of mine, and he spent $20,000 last year and has 2 full-time employees just filling out FSMA and global food safety paperwork. So get ready to work together to change it as an independent farming niche. Because it's easy to get farmers to work together. All the farmers are laughing. All right, so show of hands. I'm kind of maybe giving it away. Trick question. How many people think this debut crop with the University of Hawaii growing a Chinese cultivar called Yuma was a nice-looking, successful crop? Anyone? No, but really, would you have thought so? It actually, the crops were, I mean, the cultivar grew well. I mean, it liked the region. When I showed this to the then fiber farmer relations manager to a big Kentucky fiber processing company called Sunstrand, proudly, I'm like, dude, I'm working on a project with the fiber cultivars. He went like this. He took a step back, when he saw this slide. And it was his absolute worst nightmare because of the bottom line difficulty of harvesting. There's a lot that goes into fiber, but that's not what you want for industrial scale fiber.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Yeah, sure.
I worked with that crop quite a bit, and I remember when it first came in to the state to be used. And one of the real concerns with Yuma is that it came from China. And in China, they don't have regulations on THC and CBD. So when we bought that crop, bought that seed and brought it in and gave it to myself and to the university, and we started growing it, and we spent a lot of money trying to develop it, we found out that it was hot. It kept getting hot every time anybody tried to grow it. So it basically was a complete waste of time because we started with the wrong genetics. Biggest problem is that we didn't have the opportunity to get the seeds from Colorado and Oregon and California 2 years ago when we were trying to develop genetics for the state. And we had to go with these imported seeds, and we wasted about 2 years of our genetic development by going through a very dumb seed, and I still have those seeds.
Can I segue on that?
Yeah.
It is a perfect, everything where he said is true. Greg's a great, truly good farmer who I learned about just like from a day or two on his farm a couple years ago. So you see the name of the slide. I'm not just pretending that we're on the same page. Endgame, the era of THC irrelevance. Precisely because my Chinese hemp fiber pants right now are the highest quality in the world because of THC content in the plant. THC is something the plant wants the way that your blood wants hemoglobin. It's insane to limit a chemical in a plant based on... We won the drug war. Cannabis won. Oregon has a law that says cannabis farmers are allowed to ship their ganja, their psychoactive ganja, interstate and international if it's okay with the receiving party, on the receiving party's liability, right? That's a law in Oregon to benefit the farmers who are struggling from a glut in the legal Oregon market. It was good politics, and it's a great law. So we're going to micromanage farmers on this ridiculously small amount of THC. Here's the thing: if your crop tests, I have this cultivar I'm developing. It's incredible. It will test at 0.25 in New Mexico this year, and tested at 0.9 in Arkansas. Like and a lot of it depends on the style of test. But the very people who defined the THC law in 1976 paper, Ernest Small and Cronquist was the other guy's name, they said, THC varies over the course of a day. So the thing we're going to do is test leaves, because there are cannabinoids in leaves, but it's not as dangerous, basically, as going hot as what most states do, which is not industry supporting. They clip the first 3 inches of coal bud or something like that. So this is a policy we have to change, right? It's terrible. So we also, long term, I feel the end game that benefits us as independents most is THC irrelevance at the federal level. And what that means is hemp and cannabis again become one plant. Hashtag one plant, guys, let's start it. They are one plant and always have been until a 1976 paper. And if you want to grow fiber with 7% or 20% THC, but you're not marketing the flower, that's none of the government's business. The only thing that should matter, and it should only matter to states, is what's the THC level of a product that's going out to retail. So if all you're doing is growing it, no one should ever be testing your crop. Good news, Vermont, I'll show you some Vermont pictures. That's where I grow organic. My partner administers the state hemp program. So imagine cultivating with Hawaii's hardworking hemp administrator, Shelley, an attorney. My partner in Hawaii is the hemp state administrator, and he has instituted a policy where if you grow dioecious hemp, male and female hemp, the state of Vermont's not interested in testing your crop at all. They're not tested. It's in Vermont's regulations that they're bringing to the USDA. So if you grow hemp, it's been growing for 8,000 years. Not that I'm biased. You don't. The state of Vermont's uninterested in testing your crop. Go do what you got to do with your hemp permit. You can bring it to the world, which is a great policy. But the other thing that they're trying to institute is leaf testing and a early genetic marker testing. This is one I don't like as much, but Carrie, my partner, insists it's better for most Vermont farmers, which is to know basically as soon as the day the plant's born, practically like sexing a chicken, what its cannabinoid profile is going to be, and then they're done. Based on what that test is, they can supposedly test what it would come out to on certain cannabinoids at harvest. To me, anything that's, I'm just a Mother Nature guy, sorry. Like, when you get in the lab with test tubes, and that's not my style. So leaf testing is another thing that Vermont is putting forth in its draft regulations. The worst part, USDA regulations, so fans, how many people know that USDA hemp regulations came out within the last week? It's pretty good. So we won the drug war last December 18th, the Farm Bill, right before solstice full moon, legalized commercial hemp. Moved us from the purview of the Department of Justice under the Drug Enforcement Administration into the purview of the USDA, where arguably we belong, right? We're just growing a plant like tomatoes and kale. But it's a very much a be careful what you wish for syndrome, dealing with federal bureaucracy. And the USDA came out with their regs, and they're just out, and they're 141 pages, and you should read them. But I'll tell you what is being, I happen to have been on a book deadline, and I haven't had a lot of time to look through it, but what's coming to me from state administrators, not just one, is the problem is the THC section. The biggest problem, at least, is the THC section. I don't know if you guys, anybody's checked it out and wants to chime in on this, because now this is exciting thing about being in a new industry, right? We're getting our first federal regs, and they're real, and for now, they're final. So we're no longer operating under the 2014 Farm Bill, but the 2018 Farm Bill.
Not final. We have 60 days to make some changes.
And Vermont wants to file an injunction, by the way. You can make comments, but they don't give a shit about comments from us. we can make comments. We should. But Vermont wants to file an injunction over this .3. So here's the quick story. We're inching toward THC irrelevance, okay? Switzerland's already at 1%. That's a good start. But then we need to get rid of it at the federal level. Definition of hemp should go away. But while we're working on it, we need friendly testing methods. And what Carrie and Vermont and several other states are proposing is a formula that is accepted. It's the way Germany tests things. And it has to do with combined THC, not just just active THC, not your combined THC. So for those who are not familiar with this, really briefly, it's getting a bit wonky, and I'm not a chemist, but all your cannabinoids, the components of the flower, right? All of your cannabinoids are in their acid form, let's say, as they're harvested, most of them. You can convert them to their active form, which is the kind of thing that makes THC get you high. We go into a whole discussion about acid form is really good for you to eat in some cases, different types of cannabinoids. But for now, for our purposes, when you're combining your THC, it's not fair because the active THC is going to be very small, the delta THC, whereas the acid form, the THC, should be largely irrelevant. So states are putting forth a legitimate compromise that does multiply the two of them together, but then multiplies by 0.87, I think it is. And what that is the maximum amount in many studies of THC that actually gets converted in a best case scenario. So you're not really talking about your pure delta THC. And the other good thing about the formula is you can go up to 1% combined. You just have to have below 0.3 delta THC, active THC. It's fully legit. It's not a whacked out theory. A lot of states want to do it. Keep your eyes out for chatter now, because that was a bit wonky. We just want to make sure that the THC is not 0.3, because it's just insane to put the burden on the farmers like that. It's unacceptable. We can't live with it.
Can I say one thing about that again?
Yeah.
If we're trying to grow a quality plant, 0.3, we have to have an inferior plant to make it come out so that you can be compliant. So if you're trying to get something with, say, 15 to 20% CBD, it's almost impossible to stay under 0.3. But if you want to have something that comes out 6% CBD, yeah, you can do it. But then that's not what people want.
It's like harvesting a green banana. If you hear what he's saying is to comply, you have to be a worse farmer than you actually are. Over BS. Looking to last century's nonsense. 0.3, 3% is nothing. So we've got a little. If folks want to make. Ray, were you gonna say something?
Your point about taking the pressure off farm THC is that
also similar to the LA.
they just grow like its own tool. Cannabis plant.
So it's a probiotic that is found in yogurt. It's found naturally in curds and whey.
There's that gap between, okay, he's got a hot plant.
What we do in that program is to try to make it as diverse as possible.
Remediated, and then it's
So
gonna drive
meat represents other, if you make cheese and you have whey left over,
like,
that's a
you gotta figure out how the government interacts with the state health department because that's easy to say, but
So I hope everybody can hear that, and it's coming from a real Hemp Hawaii permit holder, Ray Maki of Kauai, and I'm so glad that this wealth of knowledge is here. You guys who are interested in getting into it, you're getting a real good education here from people who know, who are in it. So what he's saying as a grown-up in the room is, right now in many states, Oregon being one, there's one permit for if you want to cultivate, one permit if you want to be a handler, one permit if you want to be a processor, and you can buy combined permits, and then it's about can you actually even get it into the approved truck to get it from your farm to the processor, and you have to pay for that, and like, bullshit. And so, like, it doesn't happen with tomatoes, right? So, and it shouldn't happen with hemp. So, the good news is, so that's the hard version of the truth, and we'll win, we'll beat that. But the good version of the truth is there are actually real states that are instituting good policy on this kind of stuff. And I think Vermont is one of them, and actually New Mexico instituted great policy. But when people are having trouble with New Mexico is on the food grade Department of Health stuff, and Ray mentioned that too, which is a real issue. You have to, there's the table where you wash stuff has to be to certain specs. Does that sum it up?
yeah, it's all the way to FDA certified laboratory status.
That's right. That was another shitty component of the USDA thing is DEA approved labs are the only labs that can do testing. Was there another question back here? Yeah.
Just wondering, do you think I've heard something to the effect that this was a 0.3%?
Yeah.
That's since it's basically impossible, that it's making way for certain seed companies to create their own varieties, that those would be the only ones that would actually be available and corner the market in that sense. Do you think that's a valid threat or concern?
This is what we know. We know that the University of Kentucky, good folks, some folks involved in that research I know, are marketing, actively, entrepreneurially marketing a 0% THC plant. We know that Kentucky Senator McConnell is pushing hemp policy, and we know that there are large advocacy groups that exist that I kind of like have a soft spot for because I know a lot of the people involved in them, but it's not my model of farmer first entrepreneurialism, all working towards setting the policy. And then lo and behold, USDA regulations come out and it seems to encourage that. So that is why Vermont wants to file an injunction. And we're on like a 6-state tour. Carrie and I are in the next month going to be speaking in 6 states, trying to convince within the window period enough states to file an injunction based on the .3 issue, right? So Kerry's written up a whole thing, and anybody wants to get involved in this, but I'm happy to share this with them. We can email afterwards. But bottom line, it's not good policy, and it needs to change. All right, welcome. Thank you for going hemp. So that's the reality. But the cat's out of the bag. Like, how the hell are you going to limit THC on a hemp farmer when your same state allows ganja farming? Like, that's not a winning hand. That cannot hold and will not hold.
No, we have separate types of licensing for liquor production. So if you have a beer license, excuse me, so we have separate types of licensing for liquor production. You know, if you have a beer license, you know, you can't produce grain alcohol. You know, why wouldn't we see the separation of licensing in this industry as well?
You know, to be honest, I don't have a problem with professionalism and licensing. You know, by nature, if there's unnecessary levels of bureaucracy that we can cut out, when I hear somebody, first of all, I should say like I said, several states are really implementing good policy without all these middle steps. Just FYI, it's happening in some states, but like, if we need to grow up and play like all for ag products play, let's say we have to at a certain level, that's fine as long as we don't have to kill the food in supposed efforts toward food safety. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's the dealing ground that we like, the line in the sand for me on that one. So I want to talk about farmers as entrepreneurs. Trying to market a product at a very small scale, like 1,000 units the first year, is really hard. So if it sounds nice to transcend wholesale vicissitudes and markets, just know if you're trying to do it alone, a bootstrapping way without cutting corners on regenerative quality and farm to table and all that business, it's hugely time consuming. You have to go to NoCo Hemp Expo and get a booth and and explain why you're first, better, or different, and it is really, really hard. Normally, I might have them in the truck, but I think it's in my Airbnb. I always travel with my work gloves because you never know when you're going to farm. People are going to want to invest in your project. You have to learn how to say no when they're not the right type of people. And almost everybody learns this lesson, because when somebody tries to write you a check, how hard is that to say no? You know, it's really, really hard to establish a good business relationship. And so if you have any red flags, you should wait until to live another day. And so I don't know. I'm not on my first. Is anybody here in hemp on their first partnership in hemp? I'm not on my first partnership in hemp, and I'm in, I think, good partnerships now. So you're gonna make the mistake, you know, because someone's gonna want to write you a check for a lot of money. So we kind of covered this. The organic process. So when it comes to organic, it's regional. Is it Hawaii Department of Ag that handles? Is it an organics department within Hawaii that handles organics? It's its own. Oh, really? There's no state thing. That's actually a good thing if you can afford to get them here, and I'm sure there must be Hawaii-based ones. But generally speaking, like, I know of one certain Nebraska. No matter where you live, you can do third-party organic certification, and it's worth doing. Just for market reasons, but also because you're not putting glyphosate and other things on your plants. But it's Roger Gushis, the processor in North Dakota. He pays a 15% premium so he's close to $2 a pound on hemp seed, and boy, the marketing value of USDA organic, it's huge. We talked about the investors should bring work gloves. If you have an investor that just is coming and seeing this as like a 20th century kind of thing, and even if you negotiate good terms, like, just, I don't know, not to sound preachy, but try to teach your like rural values of like, this is a plant that comes from the ground, and actually the soil really matters. Let's go get dirty out there, and that's what's going to pay your investment, is us taking the extra time to do this right and grow. And guess what? We're also sequestering carbon. People, please don't put plastic weed matting down on your plants that are supposed to be for people's health. That's all I'm going to say. I periodically get preachy. Okay, so this is a time lapse of our Vermont harvest last year. It was part of our 3-acre harvest, which was more than enough to divide among my partners and do my full run for my product. Farm to table, USDA organic certified crop. I just want to argue for the feasibility of hand harvesting. So most people today think that if you're going to do hemp at scale, you got to be a grown-up and you got to have all the equipment. I would argue that depending on what kind of work you have, like the availability of people to be there, it makes at least as much sense. So this is just a time lapse of us doing about maybe like half an acre, a little less than half an acre of our 3 acres in Vermont last year over the course of not that much time, less than 2 hours. Oh, you'll see. So it was 6 humans and 1 dog. I know. Okay. We purposely planted tight so that it was easily hand extracted, like so we weren't like hacking at it with machetes. 420, and then we're the ideal thing would be to be really right, just no more plastic seed bags, but there's not that much jute available or these days, so. This was what you saw was like a little under half an acre.
Half an acre?
Yeah.
How long does it take?
Under 3 hours.
Six people?
Yeah.
How many employees?
It was 100% people with a stake in it and their family members. Yeah, it was all partners and family members.
What's the yield?
Okay, so talking again now about tri-cropping cultivars here, not flower-only CBD. Is everybody clear at any point? If you're like, wait, what? Just shoot up your hand, okay? So, dioecious male and female cultivars. There's one that I'm just developing lovingly, and it's such a fun thing to build a hemp crop. I just harvested our first New Mexico crop with my 9 and 11-year-old son, and it was really just a magical experience. So, the new normal on seed harvest is 1,000 pounds of seed per acre. You can definitely get significantly higher than that, and even in high quality, but it's the new normal. The Canadians, right before U.S. legalization, were getting average 600 acres, and part of that goes to something else that I really wanted to talk about today, which is the genetic level playing field. Hawaii suffers from it about the worst of any state, not having a genetic level playing field, although it's getting better here, and it'll catch up soon. I've had I don't know if it's good or bad fortune to work in 2 states that had a really unacceptable policy on this, and the other one was Washington, and I'll tell that story really briefly. The state of Washington didn't understand what Michael Pollan understands, which is that Americans are the best cannabis farmers in the world. Like, he thinks he can't say enough about American cannabis farmers, so good job, cannabis farmers. And that includes hemp farmers. Our cultivars, our genetics are the best, including working in feral genetics that survived prohibition in the Midwest, are getting worked back into genetic lines. And so we're actually doing a better job than any place in the world in the tired like Canadian genetics or the tired European genetics. And those have their purposes, but often the way the breeder stuff goes, you're a serf. It's like the way it works, but only for the last 100 years, which is you're enslaved to seed companies when you buy their seed, and you can't replant it. Now in hemp, it could be a good trade-off for some people who are taking faith that the company will keep producing and keep their prices low and keep their supply up. If you're doing something like hemp hearts and you want the same production of the same cultivar every year, and you're not that worried about yield, and you're maybe not that worried about taste, and you want accurate production and all that kind of stuff, consistent production, and you're only paying $4 a pound of seed, I'll tell you, my cultivar is more expensive than that, but you own it afterwards, so do the math. And if you're in it for the long haul, you want to go and do it for owning your. I'm into seed security, I'm into food security, all that kind of stuff. So the genetic level playing field just basically says, I'll read Vermont's law on it. It says, permit holders in Vermont may utilize any hemp genetics grown by a permitted hemp farmer in the U.S. that their certificate of authenticity, their COA, was below 3.3 or below the previous season. And then you can plant anything in Vermont. Yes, when the industry grows up, there needs to be traditional ayahuasca-based seed certification, absolutely. But this is one of the nice things about prohibition, is we're setting the terms, we won the war, and our terms are, we're doing this a little bit differently. We're going to let farmers decide and develop and not just bring in inferior seeds from other places. And so the level playing field is very important. And when a state has it, their program takes off. So just watch. There's 30-something in Hawaii now. Just wait when Hawaii's hemp laws catch up. What's going to happen to the farmer numbers? I can tell you, my state of New Mexico, but Washington is the most dramatic story. My consulting clients were a tribe there. They were the only people still planting by year 2. By year 1, there was 4 permit holders. Year 2, there was 2 because nobody could plant good genetics or replant them. And then the law changed, and this year, I forgot, does anybody know Washington? It's hundreds and hundreds of permit holders and thousands of acres. My state of New Mexico launched right with a good program, almost as good as Vermont's. First year, we have 350 farmers and over 2,000 acres planted, mostly outdoors, sequestering carbon, saving humanity, you know. So when you're talking to your legislators that aren't on board with this, they need to really, the policy panel is after this, I believe, today. And for those of you that really are serious about hemp, please stay for that in Hawaii, stay for that panel. But the 2 big lessons, in my view, are THC irrelevance and a genetic level playing field. I'll take a couple of questions here in a minute, but quick discussion on processing. So there's many different modes of processing. Personal opinion, hemp's a big tent. Do whatever you want, you know, as long as you're respectful. But I didn't answer your question on yield on fiber. The fiber yield, I'm getting. It's unusual because of the hand harvest, the way we do it, but I would say you can argue that you could get at least half a ton mixed fiber like this, fast and herd per acre. It only is value added if you are in large amounts, unless you do high quality specialty stuff like for Mars's Silver Mountain guitar brands. You could potentially craft the high quality fiber that would go into it. I'm really against the grain on this. 80% of the hemp market now believes in CBD sensimilla. I use seeded flower, and I only use it as my own product. So I don't try to market it and sell it. Quantity, I would say, that's a good question because we don't get all of our flower. We just can't. Excuse me. We just can't. It's too much for what we need to do for all our products. My partners, my other cultivation partners, their product, they grow CBD just for that flower component and then use their share of the hemp seed oil, right? I use the flower from I use like 10% of it. So I don't really know how much we get, but for those of you that want to produce flower, what would you say, Greg, is a good yield on dry weight, post-harvest? I hate calling it biomass.
It's really hard. I mean, it depends on how you grow it and what kind of techniques you use and how much, how far apart you put them and what time of year it is and what kind of weather you got. I mean, I can't even give you a number that can tell you exactly how much you can do. I don't know. It's not relevant anymore. If you're going to plant them real close together, you're going to have a different kind of harvest. You're going to wait till the plant's over the 15 days and you're going to get a higher CBD, extraction. It's real hard to make that call.
Any of the other farmers?
Yeah. Especially growing here in Hawaii because you have so many different variables growing here. You know what I mean? You got the weather. You got all this. I don't want to say pollution. You know what I mean? But you got all of this going on. You got everybody coming here. All these different gases coming off. You got all these chemtrails coming across the sky. You know what I mean? You got a lot of stuff going on. So a lot of variables are going on now here. The best way you can do it is maybe like open field. You're always gonna have a lot of different variables, no matter what. Greenhouse, you're gonna have some variables, but it's not always gonna be on the dime because all the variables here. You got the weather. The weather can wreck down your greenhouse. It can mold out all your wood in your greenhouse unless it's indoors. There's a lot of things going on. So growing here in Hawaii, you always have to adapt and change. Everything's gonna be changing as the years go. From a grower, I've been growing 4 years. Everything. All my plants, they either die off, they either have a hard time growing no matter what I put it in, no matter how much nitrogen fix I do, no matter how many cover crops I do. You just always got to till your soil, change everything up, change with the adaptation of the island. We're in the middle of nowhere, we're a big rock, you know what I mean? So we always have to change. Everybody coming here, not just people, not just plants, but wildlife, you know what I mean? There's everything changing. So as a farmer, here in Hawaii, you have to learn to adapt every year, every month, because there's new things coming here on this island every single day. you can avoid it, you know. From my perspective, anyway. I'm a young farmer myself. I'm a taro farmer here in White Creek Valley. If you know Uncle Bobby Padilla, he knows me as a young taro farmer. He's been seeing me running around. I harvested just about maybe like 100 pounds of taro leaf today, and I've gone through maybe 40 different strains of taro, wetland taro now, in my patch. I've gone through 40 different strains, and I still haven't found the perfect strain. You know what I mean? I still haven't found the perfect variety that grows, because everything's changing. I get less water sometimes I get a bunch of water at one time. But it's like everything's always changing. You want to be able to adapt. So you always have to have something on the side, or you will have something in stock to plant during that season. You'll be able to tell by the year that's coming by. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, thank you so much. God, that was so. What this tells me, my number one takeaway from that, thank you, was my number one takeaway from that is every time I enjoy any cannabis hemp harvest in Hawaii, to really appreciate the farmer. Everything.
Fruit in general, ulu, breadfruit, taro, everything. Everything's always changing here in Hawaii because there's so much coming here. You know what I mean? There's so much different variables that can come here, destroy it, benefit it. So you want to be able to adapt to that changing of the earth, of the islands. If you live in the middle of nowhere, we have a lot of salt breeze coming around here. Even going up to the mountains, we have a lot of salt breeze going. So you gotta think about that also. Bring that into your studies of your documents. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things changing.
Beautiful. Mars.
Mainland, yield, flour, 1,000 to 1,500 pounds per acre. That range.
Did everybody hear that? If you're talking about dry weight harvest, 1,000 to 1,500 pounds dry harvest per acre is your average. Two other things I want to touch on really quick are processing methods for those who aren't familiar with them, really briefly. So I like the most ancient one. I'm lucky because I do a small batch pressing thus far just once per year. We're scaling up next year, so I'm going to have to rethink this, but I decarb 100% of my product, and decarb is double toil and trouble. It is heating up plant matter in a lipid up to just the right temperature that removes a carbon atom, not quite boiling. It's really interesting when you're decarbing, the bubbles are a different size than boiling bubbles, and you want that. And I love the processing time, and we did it in like this snowy Vermont hotel. It was a girls' camp in the 30s called Camp Wahakiki or something, like a totally like fake Native American, and now it's this like upscale lodge, and the owners let us use their commercial kitchen, which was really awesome. So we were making product from my colleagues and I, and we had the pressed hemp seed oil from our harvest, and that's why I charge $50 a bottle. But everybody's mode is going to be different, right? And so another mode that I think is legit, and Lily's, by the way, the real expert on this, is going to talk more about processing tomorrow, is cold ethanol. You know, those basically type of extractions. It's kind of like a reverse still. What we didn't talk about earlier on the point 3 is that the secret of the hemp industry is that when it gets to the processor, if you process by almost any mode except decarb, you're concentrating way over legal hemp limits, and nobody cares because the final product gets back into legal hemp limits. And that's why we shouldn't punish the farmer. If it doesn't matter to the processor, it shouldn't matter to the farmer. It should only matter when it goes to that end. So I'm glad to hear other guys in the real world market agree with that. And so, you know, it's an essential policy, and a lot of people are going to tell you it's crazy at first, but definitely go. So cold ethanol, I think, is legit. As with everything, right? We're trying to be regenerative. Think about, especially here in the islands, solar powering your facility so that you're not generating a huge amount of fossil fuel use in your processing, okay? We'll have differing views on this. I'm not a big fan of supercritical CO2-based stuff. It's clean in terms of solvents, but there's some terpene stuff going on, and there's so many opinions about this. This is not, and Lely's the real expert, and I'm sure everybody here knows, just not my favorite mode. Also, it's pretty energy demanding, so solar panels. And then for me, off the table is anything petroleum-based. Not so much because of any debate about leftover residual, extraction materials, but solvents or whatever, but more because we're trying to move away from petroleum as humanity. So let's not use petroleum in our medicine if we can. So regenerative processing. And the last thing that I want to mention today is a fiber application. How many people know what I mean by phytoremediation? For those who don't, it's soil building or soil healing, and so this is like, I'm sure many people feel this way, that this is it's a really special thing that the Farmers Union is here on this cane land. And for people that are from Maui, you know this was not happening 10 years ago. Could you be setting up tents and talking about regenerative agriculture, let alone hemp, on what had been, you know, HCNS cane land? And so it's whatever is really going on, or whatever anyone thinks is really going on, that we are here on this land talking about healing is a really good step in the right direction. And where that ties into hemp farming is that the roots of hemp, for a lot of reasons, are an exceptionally important phytoremediative crop when it comes to cleaning up specifically, this research has really been done, cleaning up atrazine and common sugarcane pesticides. So the idea of just mass planting these 19,000 acres for a couple seasons, which of course in Hawaii is just 1 year, because although what we learned at the University of Hawaii is probably what you experienced guys already knew, which is it's not really 3 seasons. There actually are growing seasons, and it matters when you plant. You know, we're not on the flippin' equator, but even an immature crop that is not an awesome crop can still be phytoremediative, because what's happening is hemp is breaking up the compacted soil. It's mainly a mechanical thing. It's a plant jackhammer. It's not super magic, but it is in a class of plants that when it extracts certain types of toxins, renders them inert. And that's relatively recent research. I got to interview the professor, and it's coming out in my next book. So what we're getting at is the big question of, okay, you've cleaned the atrazine, is your hemp toxic, and then what do you do? To the extent that you don't want to sell phytoremediation crops to people to eat, which I think we can all agree, if you're cleaning up atrazine or glyphosate, that's not a food product. One thing is to keep building the soil with like there's some real mushroom people here and some experts all over, and mushroom talk later today I'll go to. Mycological combinations with phytoremediative plants like hemp is a huge field of study for people who are interested in research. Really an astounding amount of the world's soil is dead or poisoned or food and poison for 100 years. That really doesn't seem like a well thought out decision. So anyway, let's end on a positive. Hawaii is going to catch up. Obviously, there are people here better equipped than I to tell you all this, but I have dealt with the Hawaii process a little bit, and I'm getting, the legislators are telling me, and you guys nod or shake your head, that actually we have a chance now with this session and this governor, so let's make a good bill. And I just have seen it in my own state in New Mexico. When the governor, guys, don't post this one as like, fine, this is Governor Ige. When he doesn't want the program.
It's live streaming right now. Right to his office.
Governor Ige is going to be the most pro-hemp governor Hawaii has ever had. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, now post that, mother. Now, before we say it, I can take, we're kind of out of time, so we can take a couple questions. But can I ask a favor? The American Hemp Sign Language sign was invented by a colleague named David Pillar. You guys, I'm sure, know David Pillar. He is deaf. He asked us to document it so that it becomes official. It's your arms crossed with your thumb up over 2 fingers. And I'd like to sort of maybe stand on a chair and try and do a selfie or something like that. And thanks, guys. Let's see. If we can get everybody. Oh, you guys look so good. I hope we have everybody. 1, 2. I gotta do it too. 3. Oh, thank you. Let me make sure I got it.
I feel like you're going to have the Where's Waldo tabletop book of all the people that you may do this around the world.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Again, not just for me, but for anyone knowledgeable. Ask questions, Greg.
Okay, I have just a statement to make and then a question. When we talk about point 3, what is the reason for point 3? Is the reason so that we don't get high on hemp? Well, has anybody ever smoked a hemp plant that has 1% in it? or even 2% in it, you don't get high.
I do.
Yeah. You get high on 1%?
Yes.
Really?
I absolutely do. In Massachusetts, weed is legal.
Yeah.
And for me, even at 0.5, I get it's less enjoyable to go do things that require me to have total focus.
So you can't even take any THC without getting high?
If it's below 0.3, like say Cantatonic, which has 4 phenotypes, one of them that's pretty consistently is 0.00 or 0.01.
Yeah.
I'm good. I can smoke it all day. It relieves the pain that I have. I feel pretty good. But once it gets to 0.5, like there's a strain called Yummy. Like I get the pain relief, but still it's noticeable. So
How much CBD is in that plant, though? So how much CBD or CBN or any other cannabinoids are in that?
The Cantatonic has a pretty high level of CBD. I think it's just over 20%.
As we bring back
And the Yummy strain, I think, is about
I
12.5.
don't gotta climb up there. What I can do is
So, I mean, the relief is there from both, but I certainly prefer the Cantatonic when I can get it, because I'm kind of a stoic dude. I'm not a fan of these stones. I just also don't like pain. But those two strains are pretty good. But yes, for me as a human being, 0.5 gets me high.
I'd like to add that the decision to make the 0.3 came from a single study in Canada when they were trying to set a limit, and that just made it easy for them. There wasn't scientific studies or anything like that to determine that. That's why they consider it more of an arbitrary thing, especially when if you're growing for industrial fiber. There's no chance that high amounts will get you high on your pants.
Right.
Awesome. Maybe take one more question, guys, real quick. This is what
I just wanted to say, pollen drift. Because we're concerned about pollen drift here in Hawaii. So, and you keep talking about all these males and it's scared the shit out of me.
I get it. So there they are. There's the males. There's the boys. Do you see them? These ones right here. So this is again an opinion. This is an opinion, and here's the thing: after most revolutions, we just won a war. We won a war. Can we admit I mean, I know there's mop-up battles here in Hawaii, but we won the cannabis war. Like, cannabis is back, people, and it's big. And so, if you don't realize that, yeah, because of Hawaii, it's a little different. You soon will, okay? And what happens after wars is the victors turn on each other. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, and it almost always happens. I don't know the psychology of why that happens. Oh man. So I have a dog in both fights. You know, like, I mean, I love every part of it. Is my creds as loving cannabis in doubt? I love it. I love the plant, right? So farmers have to communicate. The reality is, Sensimilla cultivation, if you talk about ganja, is 50 years old or less. Sensimilla cultivation for hemp is 10 years old or less. And this type of cultivation, which, by the way, this was the University of Hawaii project. That was a little whispering thrush that gave birth to their chicks hatched in the crop, and we processed and dried really low budget ways. Keep kicking that over. Smells good. Is it lavender? Okay, so and one other last slide, but I want to address Greg's question really quick, and I don't want to like hog the mic because his point of view is legit. I just want to show the B slide. The B slide is really important. That, by the way, imagine this. That's the administrator of Vermont's hemp program, my farming partner, Carrie Shiger, and that is the Secretary of Agriculture of Vermont, he showed up to help us plant our hemp crop. Nice guy, Anson Tebbets, just the guy who is the Secretary of Agriculture for the whole state for our 3-acre crop. We lubricated our 1930s seed driller with hemp seed oil. Worked great. We'll talk about animal feed another time. Oh, if you're harvesting, especially a tri-crop, but everything, you need to get it dried right away, down to 8%, right away, immediately. I hope everybody takes that away. People lose their crops, especially here where everything's so wet. Anyway, bees, okay? That is our Vermont crop last year, and the curricula of that bee, I was like, take it easy, pace yourself. The bees are the new Save the Whales, and bees love male hemp pollen. But all of these things are, what Greg is saying is, I think what he's saying is, don't Sensimilla farmers have a right to make a living, because their living can get ruined if it's pollinated, right? So what is the sweet spot between an 8-year-old method and a 10-year-old method? And the sweet spot to me is everybody should be free and allowed to do exactly what they want. And if they're good people, this plan is based on karma. It grows if we love it and treat it well. You're such a great farmer, Greg, because I'm watching you in the field and you're part of those, all your crops, man. It was incredible. He's a vegetable farmer, organic farmer. It's great. So he loves the crop, right? If somebody doesn't love the crop, it's not going to, right? And if they're such dicks that they're not going to communicate with their farmers with their neighbors about what they're doing, the plan, maybe I'm just like being too woo-woo here, is not going to allow that to be. The communication has to happen, and this has happened with farmers throughout history. In Belgium, I was at a kitty corner, 2 10-hectare hemp farms that were different cultivars. And so I asked the question, aren't you worried about cross-pollination? They're like, no, we know the planting, we know these cultivars well. And here's another thing, we have a game plan if there's a perfect storm. Like if something goes really wrong and then there's terrible winds and they're pollinating males of one when the females are receptive of another, which is, as you know, a relatively short window. They have safe sex if they need to. They almost never have to do it, but they raise berries, and there already are some trees. So what I'm getting at is, there are ways, even for adjacent hemp plants, to collaborate without cross-pollination, and they weren't worried about it. So I want to give Greg a chance to really talk about this, because pollen can grow. I just think it's a fundamental human right to cultivate. I'm not going to let anybody restrict my family's right to grow food crop because somebody next door says, no, my flower crop is a gold rush and is worth more than your family's food. My answer to that is, you want to come and cut it down?
So do you want to see this whole place full of flowering male plants?
Well, I mean,
that's just my question. I don't have an answer to it.
I don't have an answer to that either. I think that the phytoremediative thing would be hard to do in Sensimilla.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't 1,000 acres of all females be? It would have to be dioecious.
Yeah.
So, is your opinion that let's say if it was done in a 100-acre way with wind screens going up for, like windbreaks, whatever they are, whatever's great for windbreaks, go up, and 100-acre parcels as part of a 20-year plan, do you think that devastates the Sensimilla industry?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either.
We haven't seen it. I mean, we don't have that happening yet, so we don't have an industry in Hawaii. I don't know whether that's going to happen.
I mean, in history, it rarely happens.
It's a very, unique growing ground for some of the best in the world.
Definitely.
That's true.
Just a question to either of you, both of you. Do you know what the distance for pollination, cross-pollination is, where it would be safe to have a dioecious crop versus all feminized?
There is, the truth is there isn't a whole lot of, so Andrea Herman, you know her paper, right?
3, 4, 5 miles.
But we're talking about perfect storms. Like I said, there were catty corners, like for my mind, so I'm cautious about this because I don't want anybody to lose their crop, right? Like I actually care, right? So I want to be cautious about what I'm saying, but it really rarely happens, and it's often about good communication. One other example, there was a group in Oregon called the Willamette Valley Specialty Seed Association, and they have just the same issues. Their issues are, this guy's high-value organic rainbow chard doesn't cross with the next guy's high-quality organic Swiss chard. Follow what I'm saying? All kinds of crops like that. 17 types of lavender. The Willamette Valley in Oregon is really productive. And so they have this volunteer organization which since 1980 has just been about communication, and they've never had an unintended cross-pollination. I think they've had 3 cases, if I remember, of requests for arbitration, and they all successfully resulted in no, right? And that's sorry,
we need to go right to what's happening this year.
Yeah.
Is the smaller unbelievable cross-contamination. Guys like at each other's throats for exactly what you're saying. But put that on the side. I mean, it's already happening in the cannabis industry at like kind of the heart of the industry. And then see this wind here? 30 mile an hour, 20 mile an hour gusts, constant too. Like, this is going all the way to Olinda on a dry day.
So what is the answer?
The answer is, but I think you can even take it back to what the fundamental idea is of having a seed crop in Hawaii is, one, are you going to have a compliant crop at the time of maturity of the seed? 2, the finch that you just, had a bird's nest right in the middle of the bird food area. You go and buy a bag of bird food, it's literally hemp seed. So I mean, we're expecting predation on a seed crop in Hawaii of 50%.
We didn't get, just 3 crops, but just so you know, this was big discussion. I found out about this, I just left the field, and I was like on the plane back, and Melody, great colleague at University, texted me that photo. She goes, what do we do? And I said, because I've seen it all over. I've seen the sky blacken on a 150-acre project that I was working on in the Colville tribe in Washington, and you're like, this is it. They're eating our entire crop. I've never seen significant predation, and so in those 3, I told her to keep it. And, I was not, oh, I'm right, but it's like, honest to goodness, the only significant predation we saw in our hemp crops was initially the first crop not knowing how to deal with the snail slug. Yeah, the University of Hawaii seed development, remember that contract?
The guys that were growing seed on Maui actually quit their stuff early because they had so much bird predation of your co-guys.
Bird predation? Really?
Yeah. So it is
It's a
absolutely
thing.
an issue. Yeah.
Okay, and here's the other thing about the THC. Vermont's policy, as being proposed to USDA, is we don't test dioecious crops for THC, meaning you grow for male and female plants. The state of Vermont has no interest in what you're growing as long as you have your hemp permit. And I think that is freaking fantastic policy. So what happens is, I go so far to characterize my relationship with Ray Maki as I come in going, this is what they're doing in Montana, and this is what's happening in Vermont. And he's like, and that's not feasible, and that's not happening here, because he knows.
I'm not a wet blanket.
No, you just know how it works here. No, I'm saying you've been right, actually, so far, and so, yeah. What I'm getting at is, Hawaii may be behind. Hawaii may be a little bit behind on all this. And this is just big picture, the exact kind of conversation that we have to have, because I hope you guys go away with my humility to you knowing best what is for here, and I'm just throwing ideas out there.
In the next 2 years, all we can do is 10 acres. I don't think we're going to see a change for 2 years. So we're only going to be able to do 10 acres under the pilot program for at least 1 more year, and it could even be 2 by the time they figure out what they're doing. So a 10-acre crop, is not going to destroy the island. So maybe we need to test it and find out whether that's going to be an issue or not. So.
Well, and I think you got to look at the public and human benefits. We've got a lot of land that needs to be remediated. We're talking about dispensaries. They're indoor grows primarily that can be protected. So we're not going to talk about the dispensaries. We're talking about people's individual, grows that they have for themselves. And so I think it's less of an issue than we're potentially making it out.
I think the idea of remediation is a nice one, but you also have to look at like this land, for example. If you're bioaccumulating in this plant, and you're going to cut it, take it away from the soil in order to have a complete virtuous cycle. How does it get processed? How does it get utilized in another way? How do you replace the organic matter you took away from the soil?
You gotta put it back out and put it with mushrooms.
How do you, there's all those logistical issues, but when you're talking about a regional effect on something, the quantification of the dried flower market for extraction versus the commodity price for hemp oil for a small operation, when one small operation blows up the potential for some of the potentials for, the higher value aggregate regional model. That's how it has to be looked at.
Ray, the model is important to talk about the economics and scale. But with regards to phytoremediation, what they're finding is it's the bacteria, and hemp promotes that. So it's actually, we don't have to cut and haul a bunch of stuff away. It's the bacteria that are doing a lot of the remediating. Hemp just has to is an incredible source for that. Some of it obviously is taken up into the tissue, but.
And that's just taken up into the tissue is remediated with the mushrooms.
Yeah.
So we don't have to haul it away. It's remediated in place.
I would also throw in the freedom factor. I'm not saying it's the only factor, but that some sort of government or entity saying your way of growing is more valuable than this person's way of growing, so this person gets to grow their way and you don't get to grow your way, to me, is not.
But you say it's a karma thing, okay? So, we live in the paradise awareness of, the righteousness and mono-ness of our actions. So, amen for American entrepreneurialism. And I don't want to say the right to farm, but yeah, as farmers, as family farmers, we have to bring our highest ideas to it. So, you know, I guess it's a social experiment.
And testing, I think Greg's idea on testing. This, you know, Vincent gave me the sign that we're out of time, but you've been so patient. Can I? Yeah.
The question was only addressed.
Oh, it was addressed. Mushroom Talk's coming up next, yeah? Sometime soon.
Another 10-4-40.
Guys, I'm so grateful to everybody for being here today. This is the kind of discussion that we need to have because we're the biggest thing that's happened in Silicon Valley. So give yourselves a round of applause and thanks.